Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of my hangouts. Today, I'm going to be joined by an old friend and co-author of my biography, all the way from southern Spain. Meet Craig Wilson Fraser. And how do
Oh,
you do?
I'm good. How are
As
you,
you
John?
were in sunny southern Spain, but I'm
Well, the picture in the background is not from my house, but it's very similar, but it's raining right now, so this one looks better.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I'll let you lead off with
So,
some stories that we did. Just to remind everybody. Greg also was the co-author of our book, and it was called Beyond the Little Blue Box.
it's available on Amazon.
Yeah, and always please subscribe and like the video. I think we should talk about a little bit about how we started the book.
Well, the way that I wrote the book was almost like I was an interviewer, and I had compiled a whole book's worth of interviews with you. Like I talk about myself in the book, and I talk about the book in the book. I talk about like when I realized I was going to write the book and the previous authors that couldn't manage to do it and stuff like that. But I had the idea way back, like in the 90s. I was like, this guy's story is going to end up being a movie. I was thinking more of a movie. And so I was always picturing it like that. And maybe it will be one day. It was almost going to be a movie. And then I started thinking of it like a book because movies start with screenplays and screenplays got to start somewhere. So your famous breakfast order, let me see. I used to know it by heart, but it's been a long time. But it's like, I want eggs scrambled, really soft and really light, and 5 to 7 pieces of bacon or something like that, and a stack of hotcakes and loads of butter and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that's the perfect opening line to your book because if anyone's ever spent any time with you, they've heard you say that. You know?
Why did you include my experiences with the nuclear test, the book? I was just curious about that.
Yeah, because I thought it's a really interesting part of your history, even although it's like the first thing that kind of happened to you in your life that's not very many people experience that, you know?
Yeah, that was a pretty scary moment, I'll tell you. It's like I was on my way from Las Vegas, Lake Mead, where we were going on vacation, and we were carrying a trailer. We were in an old 57 Chevy truck. It was on our way up to Lake Tahoe, and it was a good long drive. We left very early in the morning. We left around 3 o'clock in the morning, and as we got closer and closer to where they were supposed to be doing a test, and we heard on the radio that they were going to do a test. They were going to close the road down. They closed the road behind us. We were going a lot slower than the rest of the traffic as we were pulling this trailer. We ended up just about as close as to ground zero as we could get.
You were the last ones at the back of the line of traffic and then after you there was nobody because they'd closed the road and you were the ones at the back that got the most of the
Yeah.
blast.
So it was
That's
just about 5:30 in the morning. It was just getting daylight. The sun was not yet come up. And then the detonation occurred. And the flash was so bright. I can't imagine anything brighter than that ever.
like lightning right there in your face or
I
something.
put my hands like this to shield it from like I could see the bones in my hands because the light was so te intense.
Wow.
Immediately,
Oh yeah, I think you said that it's like an X-ray or something.
the big pop in the radio. The radio died, and the car died. Also, they couldn't get the car started, and the
You say the
EMP.
wires were melted or something. The
Yeah, the
wire,
EMP.
wire.
Yeah, melted the ignition wires in the car. 'Cause we were on a sturdy 6-volt system back then. Very few 12-volt cars. Because it was low voltage and the wires were pretty thick, the radio was tubes, but still it took out the radio.
Right.
So we had no radio, nothing working in the car. So we sat there.
Was there no other cars in front of you that also got stalled out and
No,
the
we
only
were,
one, you were just the only ones that were going that slow that got affected?
yeah, I don't remember any
Wow.
cars being in front of us because it was a pretty empty road.
I
So I
mean,
mean,
that's pretty unusual. Of course, that's going to be in your book. It's like that you're one of a very few people that happened to, probably. In fact, if it happened, imagine if it happened now, they probably would have tested you and kept you in quarantine because they have different ways of testing, right? That you probably would were radiated.
yeah, I got a good dose of gamma radiation.
Wow.
And I don't know exactly how that affected me, but my eyes at that point started getting really, bad, like nearsighted
Wow.
after the
I mean,
test.
maybe it gave you kind of like superhuman abilities to think about systems.
And I
But
have a very strict
but the
dad.
negative effects were your eyes.
And I had the fact from my parents that I got in that I was so close to this because they would have freaked out.
Yeah, that of course was in the book because that's what a stage to be set for your
I'm one
story.
of very, very few people alive today that have actually, witnessed a fireball of a nuclear explosion.
Yeah, I mean, if that happened in anywhere near history, like in recent years, you probably could have sued the government or something. You could be like, we shouldn't have been anywhere near that. They shouldn't have been
Well,
able
remember, there was no internet. There was a barbed wire fence along the road, right?
to.
And smoke was coming out of the wires of the fence because it was picking up the high current of the magnetic pulse, which just
Wow.
it produced a current inside the fence.
It was
And
like electrifying the wires in the fence, basically.
no, it was magnetically inducing like a transformer.
That's so
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. I mean,
Then about a couple of minutes later, the blast came. Luckily, we were in a position where trailer was kind of tucked behind the
the trailer
truck.
probably protected you, probably kept you alive, that trailer.
I wasn't in the truck. I was in the truck. I was in the
Oh,
truck, not the trailer.
right. So the trailer bit being behind you probably protected the truck a bit.
Well, the blast came from the 10 o'clock position to where I was. So I was no, I
Oh,
was at 2 o'clock position. Sorry, 2 o'clock
oh,
position.
oh, so it wasn't coming from behind you.
Or more in front of us and sort of like to the side.
All right.
And it was really hot that day because it was in the summer. I didn't notice it at first, but my arm was all blistery
Right.
from the flash.
Like in Close Encounters, right? And the guy gets the suntan on half the face from the alien light.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You had a sunburn on your arm.
Yeah, but I was inside the cab of the van and I was protected from that part. My other body was part of it was protected.
Just as well. Yeah.
My eyes took the brunt, and my right arm took the brunt of what happened at the blast.
Yeah.
We
Have
sat
you
there
got a
for
good have you
hours.
got a good eye and a bad eye? Have you got one eye worse than the other?
Not really. Yeah, I think it actually my left eye is pretty bad. I got
Hmm.
cataracts of the left eye.
Well, no. Yeah.
We had to wait an ungodly amount of time. Eventually, a state trooper came along and took us. We left the car and took me and my friend Mike to I think it was either Carson City or Reno, I'm not sure which. In the meantime, they towed the car back, replaced ignition wires, and get the car running again.
Right. Well, that's good.
And we went on after about like a 5 or 6 delay.
When you got back, did your parents now say, "Why is your arm burnt?" Did you just say I got sunburnt or something?
Exactly. I fell asleep in the sun, and then I was a pretty pale person, so I
Right.
I got sunburned really easy.
Yeah.
So that was at that incident. I think the best way that we can get rid of our nuclear weapons is hold one test out in the Pacific and detonate one of our large yield thermonuclear weapons, just one blast. We get all the world leaders
To
close enough
watch it.
they could feel the effects of the bomb.
Yeah, they wouldn't do it. They would. They would because they know that if it ever happens, they'll be in a bunker, so they're not going to want to have any effect of any bomb.
Oh yeah, they'll just be in their big, fat, cushy bunkers. Yeah.
I don't think it's ever going to happen. It's too much now. Like if something like that started, the whole world would be fucked. The whole thing would be
Well,
gone.
not to mention the effects of what the EMP will do now to our computers, which are very
Yeah.
sensitive to electromagnetic energy
Yeah.
as it is.
Only,
Chips
only
have
if
a
a true
static
mad
detector.
do it now. A true mad person would start that now.
Well, chips often have a static protector on them because they're
Hmm.
so sensitive to static electricity. And then comes the E wave of an EMP that's a very short, extremely violent energy. It's very
Right.
short in time. And then there's a longer period where it's a different wave, lower frequency. After I got back, I used a lot of sunscreen.
Yeah. But I mean, did you feel like after a couple of months, did you just feel normal? It was
I never felt normal
or
after that.
you never ever felt normal.
I had nightmares. You don't have no idea of the violence of a nuclear explosion, and that's
Did
why
you
we need to expose to take all the world leaders together, put them on a remote island somewhere, and let
mm,
get them close enough to where they can really feel the shockwave of the blast, see the heat and the energy of the fireball. I think that at that point they'll probably ban nuclear weapons.
you think so? I don't know. I think they'd probably go, "Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we could really use that against the enemy."
You'd have to be stark raving mad to do
That's what
that.
I'm saying. It will never happen unless a true mad person gets involved. And I don't mean
Have
someone
a
like,
mad person.
I mean like a mad person who doesn't value themselves. So someone like Trump would never do it because he values himself too much.
No,
Like,
but Putin pretty much the high
no, he
profile candidate for that.
I think he values himself too highly as well. I think it would have to be someone who's just suicidal, who just doesn't care about
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah.
And if they didn't care about themselves, they would never get into the position of power because they got to that position because they care so much about themselves. They're so selfish.
Yeah, I was 16 or 17 years old when it happened.
Did you never keep in touch? Was it Tim, the guy that you were with, or Mike or something?
I don't remember his name.
I'm sure in the book it's Tim,
Yeah, I
but
believe so. Yeah.
it might have just been a name that you remembered and now because a minute ago you said Mike, but did you not keep in touch with them? Because you would think that such a life-changing experience, you would have always kept in touch after that, maybe.
I think so. I'm not sure. I have to look. I've been in touch with him maybe a couple of years ago. He had some health issues.
Hmm.
So
I never thought to ask you about the other people in the car. I'd like it would be interesting to
well,
see
there was just Tim
his family.
and then his father was driving and Tim was in the back seat. I was in the front seat in the passenger side.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it affected their lives.
Well, I'll look him up and see what I can find out. So that
So yeah, so that was we were talking about that event being in the book. I found it interesting to read your brother's take on your childhood because your brother's quite funny without realizing he's funny. He has a way of saying things just
I thought about getting him on a Zoom call.
that would be amazing because we were having a meeting one time when he was writing little bits for the book, and you and me and him were in I don't know if it was a video call or just a voice call, I think, just halfway through writing the book. And it was so funny. I don't know. I listened back to it like twice because his way of saying things are just so funny. He's so soft-spoken and mild-mannered, and then he tells these strange stories of your childhood, and it must have been odd for
Well,
him being.
I could get him on and we could have another YouTube video. Let's talk a little bit about how I met you. I think that would be an interesting.
That's in the book as well. I saw you the first year that I came to San Francisco. I was like trying to get my artwork into raves, and I was already going to raves in Britain, in Edinburgh, and I just designed a nightclub in Edinburgh, like designed the whole interior of a nightclub. And so I went to San Francisco to like do the same there, you know. But the first year I was there, I was on maybe at the Trocadero or it's like somewhere on
Mega
Fourth.
Triplus. It was Mega Triplus.
No, that's where I actually met you. But the year before, I saw you because you stood out so much and you were like trying to talk your way into this club. And I was standing with the guy that I was with, both of us from Scotland. And I was like, wow, who is this character? And I thought that was one of the things that I loved about San Francisco is coming from Britain at the time, everybody at a rave was my age. Everybody was like, early 20s, late teen, early 20s. And you go to San Francisco and there's like older people that you just wouldn't have seen then at a rave in Britain. Now there's old ravers in Britain. Yeah, but then you were like stand out. I was like, this guy's going into this party. And I thought you looked really interesting. And I never thought, then I remembered you, but never thought any more about it. And then yeah,
Yeah, I
the
spent a lot
next
of time
year.
on the dance floor dancing too.
But I don't think I got into that club that I saw you standing outside of, or you didn't get in or something. And then the next year, yeah, there was the Mega Tripolis thing. That guy Fraser, he was Scottish as well, the guy that organized Mega Tripolis. And I missed the one. I got to San Francisco the next year, a week after the one with Terence McKenna. So I was really disappointed that I missed the one where Terence McKenna was speaking. But yeah, then I'm sitting at the Parallel University across the street from it. And here you come up on stage, and I'm like, that's the guy I saw outside the nightclub last year. And you were talking about the internet, and everybody just kind of went, yeah, well, anyway, blah, 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 blah. Like nobody cared about the internet. Nobody knew what it was going to be. You were talking about, modems and emails, and people were just like, well, they didn't care. If only they knew what was coming, I mean, that was
Yeah, yeah.
94. There was already an internet, but most normal people just were like, so what? I don't care about that. They didn't even have emails. I was watching you thinking, I don't know what this guy's talking about, but it sounds pretty interesting. And I wanted to talk to you anyway after seeing you the year before and thinking he looks interesting. And I felt a bit sad that nobody was interested in what you were talking about. The guy before you was talking about hemp ice cream, and everybody was interested in that, wanted to taste his hemp ice cream. And then you come up talking about emails, and everybody just started talking to each other. And I thought, oh, that's sad. Nobody's paying this guy enough attention. And then I came and talked to you afterwards, and that was it. We were instant friends.
Yeah, I wasn't even hardly into the talk anyway. And I was more interested in just getting on the dance floor and starting the
Yeah,
dance.
yeah, yeah. I kind of
That was
found that
my thing, you know.
quite quickly.
Let me tell you how I got into the rave scene because it was sort of an interesting story in itself. Has a lot to do with electronics and computers and stuff as well. I got involved with the cypherpunks. These were the people that were building the PGP program. I was doing the Macintosh port to the Macintosh. Got pulled into this thing from Craig Larson, who's no longer around.
I met Craig Larson. Remember he came and stayed with us in Stockton
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or Hayward or one of those places we were staying. Yeah.
Craig was really into the rave scene as far as doing the video because he was doing the video of the rave scene.
Yeah, he was like
I
a
helped him
VJ.
out.
He was one of the first VJs, wasn't he?
And I ran into Brian Behlendorf, the author of Netflix or something. No, no, it was not. I mean,
No.
it was a
Was he
big
something to do with
project.
Apache? He was like selling ecstasy at the rave scene one week and then an internet person next week, as far as I remember.
Yeah, that was those are pretty crazy times, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'd been going through a very serious rehab issue with my lower back,
Hmm.
and I started lifting weights and working out a lot. And I got my body to the point where I could maybe dance for a little while.
Yeah, you looked like I think I described you as a nerdy bodybuilder looking guy. Like you looked nerdy with the beard and everything, but you looked like you bench pressed like 250 pounds or something.
Yeah, and I mean that got me to the point where I could start dancing. Once I could start dancing, I got over that physical lump, right?
Yeah.
Started picking up a lot of things in my body started healing
Yeah.
because
I,
of the movements in dancing. So I would start to dance the way my body wanted me to dance.
yeah. Which was very lightly. You were kind of very you
I
just
wasn't
bounced around.
aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very healthy looking dancing. If I
Yeah,
didn't have the gym to go to now, because I don't live somewhere where there's any dance parties, and we're sick of living here partially because I don't get to go and dance anywhere. But the gym is now I have to do everything at the gym, right? But yeah, dancing is so good for your body, especially like for hours and hours.
yeah, and because of that, I got unbelievably healthy. And then when I went to Harbin Hot Springs, everybody complimented on how well I looked. After every rave, I'd make my way down to Harbin Hot Springs and recover.
I remember going to Harbin with you many times, at least 4 or 5 times. And like you would always get to the gate and you would like have to get a new membership or something because your old one had something, like
Well, I'd have to smuggle
fought our
people
way in
in.
there.
I'd have to kind of smuggle people in.
Yeah. We smuggled someone into Burning Man as well in 1996. You just like piled luggage on top of them in the back of the car, and you just drove in and they went right two, right, fine, They didn't bother checking
That
back
was
then.
during the time that Burning Man was not really controllable, controlling.
Yeah. I mean, they knew that people could just come in by going around the long way anyway. So they were just, if you were, as long as you were paying some people in, they just, yeah, okay.
I had heard about Burning Man, and I saw some of the videos of the very first Burning Man, which was in Ocean
Ocean Beach.
Beach in California.
Yeah.
And Harvey, leader of Burning Man, got kicked out of the beach because it got too intense with all the fires.
Yeah.
So they worked out a deal with the Bureau of Land Management in Nevada and had it.
Yeah.
They had it now.
But I didn't obviously go to the first Burning Mans because I wasn't even in the States then. But I remember reading or hearing that the first one out in the desert, there was loads of kind of like robot wars type people, and they wanted to go out into the desert to have like, remote control car wars and all this kind of stuff. It was a different kind of scene than what Burning Man turned into,
Well,
really,
what
wasn't
you must be talking about was the survival research labs.
it? Okay. Remember some of the art cars from the 90s? Like, remember the one that was all made of cameras?
So many art cars.
I remember one that was like a shark, and as it drove along, there was a mechanism that made the tail go like this. I didn't go to Burning Man with you in 1999, but we saw each other there and we left together. But 99 was the first year that they allowed techno music actually anywhere other than the Deep Playa. Like there was a techno camp in the circle. And that was the first year they had that. And it was called Boomtown. And it was Jimmy from Distractions on Hate Street. He had Thump Radio. It was him and some other people. And I designed some of the gateway and stuff for that. But they were supposed to keep it really quiet and they didn't.
Yeah.
And that was it. After 99, then it was just rave. It was just like
It
it
was
just went.
it was before 99.
Thump Radio one was 99.
Yeah.
I know that Blue Room were there in 98 with their fire truck. I wasn't there, but they still weren't allowed techno music in the
No,
main.
they had rave camp, which is like
Yeah,
a good 3 or 4 miles away from main camp. Yeah.
right. But 99 was the first time it was right on the Esplanade, like right on the horseshoe. But it was supposed to be like, hey, everyone at Burning Man, rave camp's joining the circle now. But we're going
Then
to be quiet.
they started to organize these streets now.
Yeah,
It's getting this clock starting from 2 o'clock all the way to 10 o'clock. And that was a
yeah,
cool.
like 2 o'clock in Jupiter and things like that.
Yeah, so I was at nine, and the first time it was about the planets, or
Yeah,
the second time was the parts of the body.
right. I don't remember that. Well, I probably wasn't there that year. Parts of the body. So you were like 2 o'clock in kidney.
I was at 9 o'clock. I was at 9 o'clock and Stomach Street or something like that.
Oh my God. Is it really that? That's funny. Well, I think you talked about Burning Man quite a lot with Aaron.
Based on the
I
story
feel
about
like you didn't talk enough about the art cars. That's why I brought that up, because I remember going there and seeing all these crazy cars. And because a lot of the people that were at Burning Man were from the Bay Area then, like it was less international, you would see the art cars just driving through San Francisco. But hey, there's that car. And I remember the camera car being parked in Mill Valley one time, where Mill Valley we've talked about before that we
I
live.
remember the camera car.
Yeah, so it had 1,000 cameras on it, like old style cameras with the lens. But then they were designed in a way that the whole car looked like a camera of cameras. It was pretty amazing. People can look that up. And I remember it being parked downtown in the square in Mill Valley, and we're like, hey, there's the camera car that we'd seen at Burning Man.
So once I first got there, I ran across this group of people, and I set my camp up next to them because I was not really sure where I was supposed to camp.
Yeah.
I essentially just stayed there, and everybody sort of developed around me. I was not challenged at all about, not paying. There was no control at that point. They didn't have any
Right.
control.
Well, I remember going there in 96 with you, and it was all just camp anywhere you want. And we were just camped, and our car was parked there, and it was $50 to get in, or 50 or 55 to get in 96. And I was making didgeridoos out of PVC, and I sold a didgeridoo on the last day and handed you, I got $50 for the didgeridoo. I handed it to you because you'd paid me into Burning Man. That was it. I had no money again. But
Right.
yeah, I remember, I don't think it was streets in 96. I don't think they'd done the streets
No,
yet. Everybody
they
was
didn't
just,
do that back then, no.
I mean, they were in that semicircle, but they were all just camped here and there, and it was all just higgledy-piggledy.
One of the highlights that I remember that they had this big giant trebuchet and they launched a grand piano in the air, 600 feet in the air, and they set it on fire.
Yeah, that's
It
pretty
was
cool.
sailing through the air. It was making all these weird noises. Yeah, that some of that stuff is very intense. And future Burning Mans, I remember that I had to get quizzed on the survival guide.
Hmm.
When I go in, they'd ask me, "Have you read the survival guide?" They say, "Yeah." Well, he asked me a question from the survival guide, and I said, "Get back to the end of the line." And so
Really?
survival guides, I had to study the survival guide.
Yeah,
There was one instance, as I remember, that one of the guys wanted to really test the theory that you could close your eyes and drive in the desert.
yeah, I remember doing that.
And what they did was they hit a wet spot in the desert and they got stuck to
Yeah.
the axle.
Yes, you talked about that as well, yeah. I hadn't heard that story, but of course I know the story about Omar getting hit in the tent. That was pretty horrible. They changed it after that. They were like, no driving. I think the next year you weren't allowed to drive around. You had to just drive in and park your car. That
There
was
was
it.
one time that I remember there was some people that were driving. They drove right into a big dust cloud,
Right.
and they went head on into another car and were killed instantly.
Oh, shit. Right.
That was one of the ones before they had banned the use of cars.
Well, I remember in 96, we were in your yellow station wagon, and we were
Oh God, I remember that.
driving out into the playa, and yeah, there was just nothing there. We were just like closed our eyes and just drive for like minutes and minutes. Just take your hand off the steering wheel. Do, do, do. It was like the first experience of that amount of space, right? It's just miles of nothing.
And getting around was a problem, especially since they didn't have the street markings that would give you guidance. So
Yeah, finding your tent. Yeah.
I put a red line on my tent.
Yeah, you were saying that. I don't remember you having that light, but I'm sure you did, yeah. Because how else would we have known where to go back to?
Yeah.
Because we didn't have like a bit. We just had that one car, and there was like four or five of us packed into that one yellow car.
I was about
We just had some
600 meters
tents next to
away,
it. That was it.
600 meters away from the radio station. So once I could hear on the radio station towers, which are pretty visible almost anywhere,
Hmm.
I looked to the North Star. And then I used dead reckoning to calculate the angle of what the was 30 degrees.
Hmm.
So I'd make my way toward the radio tower, 30 degrees to the left of that tower, going in a certain direction. I'd always find my 10 every time.
That's pretty good. Is that what they call it? Dead reckoning? Is that where that term comes from?
Yeah, you're dead if you don't reckon right.
Is that what it meant?
Pretty
Because
much.
that's just a phrase now, dead reckon. Like, but that came from that, did it?
You use a lot of your intuition and your knowledge of the stars and what direction you're going. When you're flying, there's no streets to tell you where to go. You know, rely
So
on
yeah, going back to like, I feel like we didn't plan this that around the book, but it's kind of handy thinking back to bits of the book and like talk what we adventures that we had, and I feel like we would always end up Burning Man was just half of whatever adventure we would end up on after Burning Man, because then we'd go to Pyramid Lake and
yeah.
Mark Healy, you remember Mark Healy?
We met him there.
We met him. I've met Mark Healy every time I've gone to Burning Man, just by chance. Pyramid Lake,
Pyramid
and
Lake was always one of the stops we'd stop on the way back because
yeah,
you
and that
could
would be like a good kind of like cleanse, like you wash, get all the, feel all clean,
all the
and then you
quiet
look,
dirt off you.
and then you'd go into where Reno, right? Reno, and then back into normal civilization, into a hotel, and eating in a restaurant, and but you still were in that Burning Man mind, like you're just looking around at normal life, going, "This is weird." Like Burning Man felt like natural, and then you go back into the world, and you're like, "Everything's weird in the world."
I felt like I was home at Burning Man.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like a whole society that is totally different than current society, but they made a society that was really good and was well organized.
I mean, I think that's why it's been so successful. I think only in recent years that it's become like the rich kids now want to go because they've heard how cool it is. But the fact that the rich kids now go is kind of ruined it a bit. It's like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's a rich man's folly now. What is it? $1,000 for a ticket. You
Might
got to
be.
pay your camp fees. My camp fees at the, so I remembered, I stayed at the mobility camp, and I mean, it cost me $250 for the camp fees.
Right. That was in more recent years,
But
right?
I had power, I had water.
When I was there with Rochelle in 2011, we ran into you. You were staying with a bunch of surfers, like playa surfers they were called, I
Yeah,
think.
playa servers. Yeah,
And
yeah.
they were like LA dudes. They were like LA surfer jock type guy. And it was a bit odd that you were staying with them.
He had all these
Uh,
motorized surfboards running around. It's because I was staying with DJ Time. Well, I'm going to get him on here because he's got a very interesting story to tell.
yeah, I bet he does. You're still in contact with him then.
Yeah, I mean, we'd go to raves all the time, and he would DJ a lot of the raves. My Indian friend, Sambit, when I brought him there, he wanted to DJ. So apparently he was a little frustrated because he couldn't get a DJ gig.
Sam Vitt wanted to DJ.
Yeah, he's a DJ.
Oh, I didn't remember him being like I met him
He has
once
his
and
own club now in Mumbai.
he has a club.
Yeah.
Does he really?
Yeah, when I went to India there, we went to Goa.
Hmm.
After about a week there, being there, both Sandit and I we both went to Goa. We were doing some work for UVI Tours. UVI
Yeah,
Tours was a tour group, and I was going to do their website.
that rings a bell. Were you in Anjuna the whole
Yeah,
time?
well, I was in Anjuna. I was also in Mapsa,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
and
Well, I love India, and I feel like you probably felt quite at home in India as well, because the people are so
I can remember coming back from one of the parties. It was pretty dark, right?
yeah,
I ran into a cow.
like ran into on a motorbike or on
No, I
walking
was
or
just walking. I almost
yeah.
couldn't see the cow until I got right up to it.
Yeah, yeah. We used to have when we were in Goa, we had a favorite cow that would come and it would eat our garbage every day. Like we'd put our eggshells and weird shit. It would just eat anything. They just eat
Well, when I
garbage.
was in Goa, I had already met Goa Gil many years beforehand. I hooked up with Goa Gil there, and I met him at a place. He had a big backyard. He could host up to maybe 5,000 people back there.
That orange house that was his place in Anjuna.
Yeah,
Yeah,
big house.
yeah. I never heard him play there. When you were talking about it with Aaron, I think I had never heard Goa Gill actually play, but he did play at a kind of friends and family camp out one time.
It was called the Orange Bloom Restaurant. That's where I met
That's
him
it.
at
Yeah, yeah,
Orange
yeah,
Bloom.
yeah. And it was an orange building as well, wasn't it? It was painted orange.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember the friends and family campouts? Did you go to any of them?
Yeah, I went to a few of those.
Those were nice people, the friends and family group.
Yeah, they're pretty
DJ
cool.
Ethan,
Ethan was a good DJ.
he was a really good. He's one of my still one of my favorite DJs. Like remembering his style of kind of hard, not too fast, but like hard techno, hard acid.
You know,
Yeah.
after the party, I would hang out at the end up because they just opened up, right? And so I'd
Mhm.
go into there because I was still pretty high on drugs. So I would stay there and wait for the high to go down. I would hang out at the end up.
Yeah, did that a few times.
And then afterwards, I got bored of there. And then I made my way over to the Bay Area to sunset parties.
Yeah,
At that point, it
sunset
was at
sunset
Berkeley
parties on a
Marina,
Sunday.
Berkeley Marina.
Yeah.
And at that point, the sunset parties were maybe anywhere between 15 and 30 people. Most would just bring their boom boxes and play tapes.
Oh,
Eventually,
really
a
small.
sound
By the time I
system.
was going to those, they were bigger, a couple of hundred people.
Well, it got to the point where it was almost 1,000 people, and they had to stop it. For a while, they had it over at the Richmond, in the Richmond area.
Point Richmond. Yeah.
Yeah, Point Richmond.
Yeah, those were fun. Those
Everything,
were a nice way to spend a Sunday.
yeah, it was a really nice way to spend a Sunday.
Yeah.
But you'd be picnicking with their families and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
still can't get over the dancing of the boom boom. They couldn't get that boom boom out of their heads, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Sunset got to be one of the more interesting parties.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And those guys are still was it what are the DJs from the sunset
I don't remember
parties?
the guy's name, but I came with me.
Galen, DJ Galen,
Oh, yeah, Galen was one of the DJs. I'm talking
and
about this other guy that came with me.
hmm,
He basically freaked out and he got,
you mean Teddy from Texas?
that's it, Teddy from Texas. He,
I think I even put him in the book because his freak out was so we had to take him to a hospital in Berkeley.
yeah, I remember that.
He
I had no
was
way home.
I don't know what he took, but
Well, I went back to Sunset Party after that.
yeah, he's like he's gone. Let's go back to the party. God.
But I met Teddy afterwards because I met him in Texas.
Yeah, he was such a strange person to be at a
Oh,
rave
I gotta tell you
because
that
he had
story.
his
That story's
tight jeans and
crazy.
his cowboy boots and his cowboy hat.
Check this out. I was staying at his house and he lived in a nice house, but it was with his parents' place, right?
Yeah.
I'd just been to a rave in Austin.
His parents were probably like, "Who the f are you?"
Well, they threw me out.
Yeah, I bet they did.
And I was totally like unable to drive. I was
Hmm.
driving that other Toyota that was
The blue Toyota or the yellow Toyota?
blue Toyota, the one,
Or the silver Toyota. Yeah,
not the silver one, the blue. There was another Toyota that I got when I
yeah,
was,
yeah.
that was the one that I started to go across the East Coast, heading toward
Okay.
Florida.
Yeah,
Maybe with Cheshire. He had a place for me in Titusville, Florida.
yeah.
On the way there, when I was with Teddy's house, I was sleeping soundly. They woke me up. They had two cops there.
Oh my God.
And he says, "You have to leave." Huh? I was totally like not capable of driving.
Yeah.
My Toyota was having some problems getting started. We finally get the car started, get all my stuff loaded back in the car, and off I went down the road. Hit the
Followed by the police, or they
very
get
first
the
rest
police
stop.
escort away from there or something.
I hit the very first rest stop and got some sleep.
Yeah.
That's when my laptop got stolen.
Oh shit. Oh, when you had all your memoirs on the laptop.
Yeah, I had written quite a bit of my book
I
material
mean,
there.
the book that we did together would have been a different book if you hadn't have lost those memoirs, because your memory for a lot of things when we were writing the book together, we could write another book because you since the book you've remembered so many other things, and I've said, why did you not put that in the book? Why did you not tell me that story? Because you just they were gone in your memoirs and you forgot about them.
Yeah, I needed somebody like Aaron Getting.
Yeah.
I've known Aaron for so long that he was able to question me, ask me questions
Yeah.
about, oh, I remember that. I could start elaborating on that particular part of my life, right?
Yeah. Me and Aaron both did
And
that.
you
It's
did the
just
same thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if it and
You brought
Aaron he compiled a lot of the things that I then took and compiled with my memories with you and stories, and it was partially Aaron's book as well in a way, but he could just never he never got it going into a book. He could just compile it, but he didn't ever get it going into like the actual book. But I mentioned Aaron in the book a few times because if it wasn't for he was the start of compiling it after you lost the
yeah,
memoir.
he helped out a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can remember how we worked on the book. I mean, we're dealing with a 9-hour time zone. You were in Spain and I was in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I was in Spain. I started it when I was in Scotland in 2014 when I actually started writing it. When you finally said, "Yeah, go on, then you write it," because
You met Allison and she was sort of happy to
I had
help
asked you for
out with
eight
me.
years. 8 years, I said, between 2006 and 2014, every time the subject of the book came up, I would say, I should write your book. And you would say, you've not written any books. And I was like, no, I've not written any books. But then finally, I think you were in hospital in 2014 and you were just like, shit, okay, just you write the book then, fine. And that was the start. And I was in Scotland, but then we were in Spain pretty soon after that. And then I think I was in India for a little bit of right in the beginning of writing it as well. And then in Spain. And then you came to visit us in Spain.
Did you run into Arvin and Ricky when you were in Goa?
No, because I don't know who they are. I mean, you mentioned them in the
Well,
book,
Arvin
I
and
think.
Ricky basically saved my life in getting my modem to work in India.
Yeah.
These guys are modem experts.
I remember hearing a lot about Jay Wadia. Like he's famous in Goa for, party scene and
He's
stuff. But
filthy rich. Yeah, he's filthy
yeah,
rich.
I didn't meet him. I didn't really when we were in Goa, it was more just like chilling out and painting, and we didn't go to many parties. We weren't there for that. We were just there to soak up India, just to feel like I like the
You
Indian
were
people.
in, you were in Anjuna, right?
For a little bit, we started in Agonda, which is down in the south part of Goa, and it's very yoga and cool and art and all that. And then we went up to Anjuna for a little bit, and then we went just north of Anjuna to Mandram.
Yeah, I went to New Delhi with Samvit.
Right.
We were supposed to see this other people that were going to want us to do a website. It was a
Hmm.
pizza company.
Yeah, yeah, I remember you talking
And
about
I
that. That
remember
must have been pretty ahead of its time. This putting the pizza on the pizza.
putting the
Nowadays, anybody could have that on their website, but back then that would have been quite unusual.
that was done in JavaScript, but back then every browser had a different JavaScript. I could get Java working, like JavaScript working on, let's say, the Netscape browser.
Hmm.
It would not work on the Microsoft browser or vice versa.
Well, I feel like when we met up in '99 after Burning Man, that's when the internet was really starting. I mean, obviously '99 it was booming, right? That was the boom. That was when you were starting to talk about the e-commerce thing, which was just really starting because you weren't allowed to sell anything online before
Well,
whatever
in India
year.
you weren't, but in the USA you were.
Yeah, but I mean, leaving aside India, I remember you'd been in India, but you were talking about your idea was to call it transactions. Remember that?
Yeah, then later on we changed it to ShopIP
I
and
mean,
and then we
yeah,
registered ShopIP to some extent so that we could have a e-commerce setup.
yeah, it kept changing because the transactions thing was your vision of like instead everybody had to buy a digital certificate back then, right? But we were going to be a central hub where they didn't have to pay the $365 for the digital certificate. They could sell through our hub, which is a great
I didn't
idea.
want to be responsible for other people's money.
Well, yeah.
And so that I had to basically have the buyer, when they buy something, it's got to go through a payment system,
Yeah.
operated by a bank.
Yeah.
At that point, then PayPal started coming along, and
Yeah, it became a good idea. It was a good idea that became an obsolete idea pretty quickly.
that was long before
PayPal.
PayPal. It was many,
Yeah.
many, almost a year before PayPal.
Yeah, but so the Shop IP story, it started with transactions, and then it became we were talking about the IP part of IP was Internet Protocol, and we were talking about. I mean, we did that job for the bat for a real estate company or something.
UTEL.
UTEL, yeah, there was a ticker for UTEL, which again was
Oh no,
was
that was
when
no, that
we
was
had that.
called money.com.
Yeah, money.com as well, yeah.
I wrote the ticker for that.
Right. And so it was just a conglomeration of things ideas we were having to cash in on
I had
the
access to the stock market without delay.
but through money.com, yeah.
Yeah.
If only we could have harnessed that in some way. And then John Chen came and he got involved and then he was sitting working on OpenBSD and we didn't even know what he was working on. And then it became about security because he was saying this OpenBSD is so secure and da 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 da. And then we met Dan and then suddenly we went from Shop IP to we stayed
John inspired me to work on the Crunchbox because
yes.
it was so secure. I think what happened was that they did a change. OpenBSD did a change on their authentication for secure communications, and John helped me design the code, integrating that in with the OpenBSD.
Snort.
Written in Python, and we had a graphic user interface that would allow the user to set up the different start rules.
That's where I came in.
Yeah, that's where you came in, right?
Well,
Exactly.
I mean, by the time there was a graphic user interface, I feel like what Steve Innes had kind of taken over, and then I was working with him on that.
Yeah, a month or so later, I went to the Love Parade. Basically, got on my case for going to the Love Parade because it wasn't done. Says, "Don't worry,
Because
Dan,
it
I'll
was,
work on it when I'm in Germany," and I did.
yeah. I think he just maybe took the advantage to,
Well, that was the
it's,
last Love Parade in Germany. I wasn't
yeah.
going to miss that.
But I don't think like you were supposed to be the CTO at ShopIP, and it was, you know, it was just a huddle of people trying to get something done. And it seemed like I think Dan looked at Steve Innes and thought, well, let's go with this guy because this guy is like a binary hexadecimal programmer, blah blah blah. And you know, that seemed more
Well, he's a pretty good programmer, but terrible documenter. And he started putting in, once I did finally get a chance to look at the code, I says, holy shit, what's he doing here?
right.
He's giving users access to the SQL database. Oh my God, that's like an open door for hackers.
Oh. Well, then how come? So here's my question. Whoever got it to the point where we got it to, and it was called the Crunchbox because you were the main person that worked on it with John Chen, and then John Chen got disgruntled and left, and then we were going to trade shows and breaking all the hacking competitions
We
and
went to
stuff.
the SANS
How was it
conference in
so good?
Washington, D.C.
Yeah, how was it so good? Was it a combination of what you and Steve did and OpenBSD and
Well, Snort was very fast. So once Snort triggered an hack event, it would slam shut the door. And the people at SANS thought that there was a problem with the internet.
because they couldn't even find you. I remember somebody saying, for one thing, I couldn't even find them on the network, and then I would find a door, and then it would disappear, and it would be over there, and then when I get to that door, it would disappear. That was their analogy. That was their metaphor for the Crunchbox.
Yeah, I'd actually gotten it to the point where just when I went to left for Germany, I got it to the point where whenever a hacker hacked the system, it would transfer over to a honeypot.
Yeah,
Honeypot took over the connection between the hacker and the server.
right. And they were stuck in the
And
honey.
that's when I went to Germany. I got that code working. I went to Germany, and when I got back, I was really pissed off that Steve took that part out because that was the main selling point right there.
Oh, why did he take it out?
I don't know why. Ask Steve.
But I mean, what a character he was, working on this $1 million idea and sitting eating cans of beans and complaining about anything. And oh, he
I
was
mean, we had to
strange.
pay him, had to pay him in cash.
Yeah, because he didn't have a bank account.
Right. Just became more of a problem than anything else.
He was. I mean, to me, he was a problem. But then again, he also, whatever he did with the Crunchbox, you know,
He was
added to what you
brilliant
had
what he
done.
did. Yeah.
It was, you know, I mean, so to tell that story a little bit, then basically the Department of
Well, what he
Defense
did
came
was
in
he
more
took a lot of
interested.
features out. He took a lot of features out, and those features that he left in, he really debugged them really good. There was no bugs in it.
Yeah, yeah, I think that he was good at that, wasn't he? He
Yeah.
left things very clean.
Yeah.
But I feel like the fact that we had no commercial success really, but then suddenly the Department of Defense was interested because they probably saw the results of the hack competition at the SANS conference or whatever it was called and went,
Well,
who
we
the
can
hell are
get
these
Dan on
guys?
here to talk about ShopIP. We'll talk about some other people that we got involved in. I think they call themselves Allegiance or something like that, but it was
Diligent.
Diligent. That's it, Diligent. Yes.
Yeah, they were a weird cover for something else as well. They were really strange.
Yeah. They
And
were,
their CEO used to work for
as I was concerned, money talks and bullshit walks.
they were a cover for something. That was really strange. They didn't have any product, and their CEO was like knew you from their days.
I have reason to believe that they're probably CIA
I think they were. Even though that sounds like a weird conspiracy theory, I think maybe they were.
because the
We were definitely
kinds
getting
of
the
questions they were asking me leads me to believe that they were from the CIA.
Their CEO was talking about he was kind of he kind of gave himself away a little bit. He told us he was a Knight of Malta, which is some secret society thing, you know. They were just
Well,
that was
when
a
we can get
strange
Dan
scene.
on here, Dan can elaborate on all kinds of stories about Shop IP and everything.
Yeah, I'm sure he can. He was having all the conversations with everybody. He knows kind of more than us, but he also probably exaggerates a little bit more than us.
But at SANS conference, they couldn't find us once they popped the snort trigger.
Yeah.
They're gone. They're history.
I think it's a little bit sad that so your legacy of Easy Writer is now hard to find, right?
Let's talk about spam crunchers.
You've been cancelled out of the legacy of Easy Writer. Like if you look up first word processors, Easy Writer doesn't come up.
Yeah, I was removed from history, literally
Yes.
removed from history.
And then unfortunately,
You won't
because of
find
Steve
anything on
Ennis,
the web at all about Captain Software and Easy Writer. We won't
I
find
mean,
it
if you
anywhere.
you can find out about it, but it's not exactly easily accessed,
But I got so fed up with spam that I wrote this program called Spam Crunchers.
Yes. I made the logo, John.
But that thing was it cost too much internet traffic, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, you got too much spam, that's why.
Well, yeah, I mean, processing the spam messages themselves, putting them into the Bayesian filter to filter out the real ones from the spam, boy, that would have been perfect for today using artificial intelligence and a neural network. I would have had a really good spam crunchers in right now,
Yeah,
but
I bet. I'm not surprised you're working with AI now. We should have a meeting about that. I did a separate meeting about what you're doing with AI now.
I could bring in Chris and Sean, talk about our involvement with AI, because that in itself is a very interesting story.
But to end the story of ShopIP, what the reason I think it's a kind of a big deal is that if Stephen S. hadn't have screwed up that thing by leaving that thing in there that it wouldn't
Leaving
come
it
on,
locked.
they took
It was locked. He locked the program
it
out.
was so it was taken to the Department of Defense and they couldn't get into the box to use it.
Yeah,
So
that
the
was
$1 million deal, the $1 billion deal, whatever it would have been, and your legacy, you would have been another part of your legacy would have been the Crunchbox that was then used in the government and all, which maybe would have been a strange legacy to have. But you can't. Nobody will ever find out about that. The only people that know about that is like a handful of people. It's quite strange that that's
That's
going
why
to be
we're
lost as
talking
well.
about it now on YouTube. People need to
Yeah,
know.
these are the only things that
Know about my legacy as far as Easy Rider 2 is totally erased from history.
yeah.
Absolutely totally erased.
Well, I tried to in the book. I tried to
Big corporations and big business was responsible for that.
Yeah, I mean it's things should be acknowledged, even if they were even if Easy Writer was only around for a little bit of time. The fact that it laid the way for something else, or the Charlie board laid the way for early modems and stuff like that. It should be there. For some reason, because you're a bit of an outlaw and a bit rebellious through the years, it's easy for people to go, "Oh, that guy, whatever," and they've just always wanted to cancel
I
you.
could probably get Steve Wozniak on again and talk about our development of the Charlie board.
That would be great. And where's
We
your other
talked about that
interviews?
already in the homebrew computer,
The
the
homebrew.
homebrew reunion, which is already on my YouTube channel. So at this point, I think we should pretty much put a nail in it.
Yeah, I'm sure we can have another
Wrap it up.
meeting about other things.
But we got other things to talk about. So click that like button, please. We can really use that. And then, of course, I've got the patreon.com/JDCrunchTime. The only way that I'm able to do this is with your support on Patreon. So please subscribe to Patreon and get on there. You'll also get access to some of my lessons in computer theory and artificial intelligence. Took a little bit about neural networks and took a little bit about large language models and things like that. So at this, I think we should kind of end it. So thank you very much, Greg, for the
it was good talking again, John, and I'm sure we'll talk very soon.
memory, all that. Yeah. Farewell, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Okay. I'll speak to you soon, John.
Everybody.